Hi, welcome to the CaLew Perspective. Hi, John. How are you?
Hey, Harold. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Cool.
We got a topic that is going, I'd say it's right in line with what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Politics,
Politics, baby.
political world.
Oh,
That
boy.
is sort of
Yeah.
one of the things. Because actually, we are just a few days, couple days
hmm
away from the big day, which is November 5th, the election.
Yeah, and I think we dropped the fourth, so it's probably the day after
Oh my goodness.
this after this episode comes out. It's election
Wow. So
day.
this is right
It's
in
right
just
there.
right there in time. So
Yeah.
in any case, thank you for joining us. We are going to get right into it here.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking at sort of a political overview in a sense. You know, a lot of times, when we talk about voting,
hmm
we really don't think so much in the sense of what the process is.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times people have always thought that my vote never counts. So, people have sort of shied away from it. If they didn't agree with the politics that were sort of handed out and all the commercials and all the things that were sort of in that, they sort of get disenfranchised by the aspect of voting and
Yeah.
that their vote doesn't count. But I would count that as sort of a way that sort of kind of moves everybody away from that and it dispels that. And I want to talk more about
Yeah.
the process that makes that vote valuable,
Yeah,
uh,
for
and
sure.
that every vote does count.
Yeah,
So,
no, 100% true. And then I think again, I think we do want to start off by saying this, the we're going to be talking about today is the process of the election. It's not to endorse anyone. It's not to
yes.
tell you who to vote for. Both Harold and I, not that we don't care, but we don't want to sway you one way or another. We just want to make sure that you get out there and
And
vote.
vote.
That is 100% what we're trying to do
Absolutely.
here. We do not want to tell you to vote for someone
One
over
way
another.
or
Yeah,
the
one way or
other.
the other. Exactly.
Yes.
We just want to walk through this process and just to understand because I don't think
A lot
you
of
know a lot of people don't understand the process.
right. I mean, it
So
took me a few minutes to sort
mhm,
of, and when I say that is, I mean, years ago, I mean, I knew that, voting was a privilege that we were given
yep,
and that to take advantage of that opportunity because a lot of places around the world, they don't have that. And,
right,
and we do have that. So we sort of take it for granted in that aspect. And only because when we look at what is called the Electoral Colleges, we sort of see that well, it's that determines who is going to be the next president
yeah,
and not necessarily my vote.
yeah,
But that's not true.
not
And
true.
so we want to kind of talk a little bit more about that. And I think you've got
Oh
some
yeah. So
information you want to share
yes,
with
so
us.
the Electoral College is something that's used just for the presidential race, right? So only the presidential race uses the Electoral
Yes.
College. Everything else does not use the Electoral College. Electoral College was set up specifically for the presidential race.
Okay.
So just some quick highlights about what the Electoral College is. So basically, what happens is in the Electoral College, electors are representing the state for
Mhm.
which they will cast a vote for the president of the United States. The electors are elected once the popular vote in the state takes place, and the winner of that popular vote gets all of the elector votes
Okay.
of
Winner
that.
takes all,
Winner
that kind
takes
of.
all is what
Okay.
it is, right? So it's different, and it's different than every other race that we have for our political spectrum. But the presidential race was set up that way. Um, Total of 538 electors. The To win the presidential race, you have to win 270
Okay.
electors.
Okay.
Um, the amount of electors per state is based off of population. So the census, right? Every
Okay.
10
Okay.
years, our census is taken. And every 10 years, the amount of electors are adjusted
Okay.
based
Per
off of
state or in
per
that
state.
regard.
Yeah,
Okay.
based on
Okay.
the state. Yeah.
Okay.
So the amount of electors in a state is basically it's your House of Representatives seats.
Okay.
How many do you have? Plus your two Senate seats.
Okay.
And then there's also, so Washington, D.C. gets three
Three.
elector votes as well. And then just like a quirk, there are a couple of districts or counties. One is in Nebraska, the other is in
Maine.
Maine. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
where it's not a winner take all for that specific county or district. It is so whoever wins in that specific county district gets their one electoral vote, but they do not follow the whole state, right?
Okay.
So, for instance, Nebraska, you can have it go red as a state, but that particular county or district can go blue, right, and give that one electoral college vote to the other party,
Oh,
right?
really?
Same thing
Okay.
within Maine.
Okay.
So it's just a quirk. I don't know why it's set up like that, to be honest with you, but
Well,
that's how it is.
so how would a vote make a difference? Do
Yeah.
you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so the vote would make a difference. So let's just think of where we are sitting today in California.
Okay.
Predominantly Democrats, right? Democratic state, right? It's a
Right.
blue state.
Okay.
But if we were to vote one way or the other, doesn't matter which, party you vote for. But say, for instance, you're voting for a Democrat. Well,
Okay.
you place that vote, the the Democrats win the popular vote in California. Therefore, they'll get all of the electoral college votes or electoral votes for the Electoral College,
Okay.
58 plus or 55 or whatever the number is today. California has the largest amount of electors that you can win. And then on the other side, right, if I am voting on the other side and I vote against the candidate that wins, you still must do that, right? I mean, you still need to vote for who you want to vote for.
Yes.
But the way that it works is that it's based on popular vote in the state. It's a winner take all for the electors.
So,
So-
in other words, so when we look at the map and we see the blue
Mhm.
states and then we see the red states, so those states are pretty much set in who they are
Well,
going to.
I mean, the heavy, the states that always lean towards one way or the other are pretty much set, right? You think of California again as a Democrat,
Right. Right.
but you think of Texas and Florida right now, Republican, New York, Democrat, right? Basically, it's all on the coasts, right?
Okay.
That you're getting the Democrat vote, and of course in the Midwest we got Minnesota and Illinois. But yes, so that means that there are swing states though, right?
That's what I was going to ask if that.
Yeah, so the swing states are the ones that are, undecided. It can go either way.
Okay.
The population density and or the voting, the demographics,
Now,
is more of a 50-50 split.
is
So
that
it can go
different
either
than
way.
the battleground states, or is
Similar. It's very, I mean, they're the
okay,
same
kind
thing,
of the same
right?
thing? Okay.
Yeah, similar, they're the same thing, the
Okay.
battleground or the
See,
swing
I
states.
think that's where a lot of people start to get
Mhm.
sort of not unclear as
Yeah.
to how that works and so on.
Right. Yeah. So for instance, you think of New York, California for the Democrats.
Yeah.
You will have the candidates coming into this state. And the reason for that, for my opinion anyway, I mean, you just have to do your own research, but is a lot of the money flows from California out
Okay.
into the Democrats, right?
Okay.
It's the same thing for the Republicans as well, right? California has, very heavy donors, that go either way.
Okay.
So they'll campaign in the say secured states that they won.
Right.
And to fund, right, your battleground and or your swing states, you still need to show face, even though for instance, California is going to go Democrat, right? It's going to go that way. However, you've seen the Republican candidate come into California many times, right?
So is that disenfranchised for the Republican candidate a voter in
It
the
can
state
be.
of California
Yeah.
to sort of feel like, well, I'm in here, my vote is really not going to make a difference in that regard. I think
It
that's sort of where
can
people
be.
start to
Yeah.
feel sort of disenfranchised when they vote, but I still would say that your vote counts
Mhm. Oh,
because
for sure.
you know
100%.
if for whatever reason that if you throw that away, it potentially say, well, let's say that he did really well in
Mhm.
California, even though, maybe it was a blue state.
Yeah.
He did very well. So I don't know. Does that have an effect? Let's say that it gets down to the point. Let's say that the candidates are evenly matched in these swing states. So will it look now at the popular vote overall that determines that? No?
Negative.
What is
No.
that?
So Electoral College is not based on total popular vote.
Okay.
It's based on popular vote in the state,
Okay.
right? So it doesn't take into account the actual national popular vote. Now that's still calculated and tabulated, so we know how many people voted for each candidate.
Hmm.
All candidates, I want to say, not each, right?
Right.
Um, but the way that it works is that you can actually win the popular vote, but still lose a race because you didn't have enough electoral college
Exactly.
votes.
Okay.
So it really depends on the states that you win.
Okay.
That will drive you, right? So it's a strategy game.
Yeah.
So on both sides, they look at, what have we secured already? We know we've got
This.
California, Oregon, Washington, New York. We've got all those states for the Democrats. And then you look at those swing states or the battleground states. Hey, how's Michigan looking? What's Pennsylvania look like? Ohio, Arizona,
Mhm.
Nevada,
Okay.
Georgia. And it's the same
And
thing
those are
on both
crucial.
sides.
Those are
Those are the crucial
crucial.
ones. Those are
Okay.
the ones that'll swing, the actual race,
Okay.
right? Those will determine the winners. So I think, when you think through, and we'll get to changes later on in the Electoral College and what we can do differently. But I think that's a part of it is, you know, that leads yourself to be like, that's a battleground scape, meaning I'm going to do most of my campaigning there because I need
That's
to
where
win
they.
those votes
Okay.
in those states.
And to sway one way or the other for either party in those states there. Okay. So
Exactly.
that's what they sort of look at on campaign night.
That's it.
They
They
start to look at that.
strategize, right?
Look
They've
at
been
that.
strategizing it probably for a couple years already to how
So in
how
that,
they
when
can
they
win.
say we've got the early, let's say, results in for the state of California,
Right.
at this point, this has been determined now that it's going to be
Yep.
for this the Democratic
Yep.
Party, and then they'll look over at Texas and say that we've
Easy.
got the results
Florida,
in,
Texas.
and the results are in. So
Right.
that's how they determine that. So now we're sort of sitting in these particular states, then we're still waiting for the battleground
That's
or the
it.
swing states to come in with theirs, and
Yeah.
that's what determines who's going to
It's
be actually
yeah.
chosen as the next president. Okay,
Yeah, it's a game to get to 270, right?
okay,
So you have your electoral college map. You know what state is worth. Every state's worth, right? In electoral college vote, in
okay,
electoral votes.
yes,
So they do the math. Hey, we've got all the West Coast. We've got New York, we got this, we've got Texas, and we got Florida, and we got the Midwest, and we got Montana, and we got, you know, and
yeah,
then they say, okay, where does that put us? Well, does that get us to 260, 250,
exactly. So
240,
they
whatever it is?
count that up.
And they
Yes,
count up, and then they go backwards. Okay, if we have good polling in Georgia, we can count on X amount of votes, right? X amount
okay,
of electorals,
okay.
right? So they have all these scenarios that the strategists are working out. Um, and again, that's why they call them the battleground states, man. That
I
those
can
are
see that
won.
now. It's
They're
like,
won on, in the ground on those states.
wow.
So it's pretty crazy to think of, that a few states
can can can
can
make
make that difference,
well,
make or
they
break.
say early, they said, well, when they look at Iowa, they say
Yep.
Iowa sort of helped to determines the course of
Yeah.
who the candidate is,
Okay.
early. I mean, this was something early, and I always sort of tried to understand, well, how is it that Iowa is sort of indicative
Yeah.
of
It's like the bellwether
right
of that,
of
right? It's
that
like, but
process.
why Iowa,
Why?
right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Like,
so now, sort of getting a sort of an understanding of why
yeah,
these battleground states have been so important to a candidate,
so
to
important.
sort of that sort of kind of gives kind of an idea, an overview of that. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So, and just quickly going back to the Electoral College and why it was used.
yes,
So, just in my research here again, is it fair? It's an antiquated system. It was originally intended to make sure that we had the best candidate
okay,
and we had the best person running the country. Um, there was some pushback from southern states, right, based off of census
okay,
and population. Um, slaves didn't count as a full person. There
right,
was like 3/5 of a person. So, I think the states that had, the southern states,
Right, that
they
had.
felt like, hey, well, it doesn't count as a full person. That's not going to be representing us, the best way that we want it to. Um, so the push was to have this system so that it could be fair for all states.
Okay.
Of course, this was back in the
1817.
1700s, right? The Constitutional Convention was getting ready. So it's a system that was built when we were very young as a country.
Correct.
And things now are extremely different, obviously, with everything that's gone on, the population expansions,
So hasn't
all
why
that
hasn't
stuff.
it changed? I mean,
I don't know.
is it has it? I thought I heard something about it was they talked in recent years about changing it or so, but there was not, you know.
Yeah, so I think I want to say that, and that's in my notes here. I think the closest we've come to changing that was in the
70s?
70s.
I thought I remember hearing
Yes, it
something like
was the
that.
70s with, and excuse me if I wrote this wrong, the Bain-Celler Amendment.
Okay.
So Emmanuel Seller from New York and Birch Baugh from Indiana, both Democrats. Um, they wanted to change the Electoral College, and they wanted to do away with it and go to popular vote.
Hmm.
At the time, Nixon actually did endorse it as well.
He
So
did.
it was bipartisan,
Okay.
right?
So it was a
You had
okay.
Democrats, Republicans backing this up. However, there were six senators that did not back this,
Okay.
three Democrats and three Republicans.
So
So
again,
again,
it was
as a
both parties.
right, it was a couple people on either side didn't want to make this change.
Did it say
Um,
why, or did it give
yeah,
any
it
indication as
doesn't
to?
it doesn't show why, but my guess is it wouldn't have been fair, right? In the eyes of those senators, it wouldn't have been fair to their state.
Okay.
So, for instance, that's why that it was done or wasn't done. So it looks like it was filibustered, September 8th, 1970,
Okay.
and then it died there, January 3rd, 71, and it never came back up.
Well,
That
see,
was the
that's what I
closest. That was the closest it's ever been.
really.
And think about that, in the 70s.
I know that's for me. I'm saying
So
that.
this idea is not an old idea to get rid of the Electoral College. It is just an idea that hasn't been able to get passed
Well, now
with
when you look at it
bipartisan.
for the local, when you talk about local elections,
Hmm.
and they go by the popular votes in the those local areas. I mean, and
It's
well,
true. Every vote, every political race that we have besides the presidential race is determined off of popular vote.
yeah, and you'd
And you
almost
think
think
about the
that.
world,
Well, yes,
everything in the world really is a popular vote, right? There's no electoral system that I can think of. Again, maybe I'm wrong, and you guys can correct me, but I can't think of any other political system like the Electoral College anywhere in the world.
so, do you think that the electoral college aspect is deemed on based on the population in certain states versus the population in other states that are more condensed or more?
Yeah, so I think that it was set up again to be fair, and at the time, it made
It
sense,
made sense.
right? The timing that we had back in those days, it
And
made
because of the
sense.
slave population and so on, they were sort of
Exactly.
wanting to utilize that. So today, without that being said, that's no longer prevalent,
Right.
and so it doesn't really have an effect on.
Yeah, and that's why I think around presidential election time, I think you always see this little swirl of people
Okay,
asking about the Electoral College, like what is
I
it?
know.
Why do we have it? Is it going to go away?
And I
Right.
think
And that's,
that sort of became the sort of the crust of why people felt that their vote really didn't matter.
yeah.
And so they were like, well, why am I going to even vote? Because
Mhm.
it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. For instance, in California, if I'm a Republican and I'm a Republican voter and I already know the state's Electoral College votes are going to go to the Democratic Party, why do I vote?
Exactly.
Similarly, if I was, a Democrat in Texas or Florida and I know it's going to go to the Republican, candidate, why do I vote?
Well, now let me throw something in on. Okay, so if we look at the number of representatives in that state, now let's boil it down to the local level.
Mm,
And now you're starting to vote for the candidates at the local level to either put those back into the House of Representatives or the Senate, because those elections are also happening too, but they are happening on the popular vote
Popular vote.
in that
Yeah.
area. So it could turn that particular state, you know, with the number of representative, that could turn, and the vote that you were looking at as far as the president, it also starts at that local level, does it not? Am I,
Well, it's so
you
yes and
sort of
no.
see what I'm
Yeah,
talking
but
about?
yes and no, because again, popular vote for president doesn't matter. It
Right.
it matters in state on the state level only. Not the county. Well, I guess it would be equal to the county level, state level, right? All the same. Popular vote for the state wins all the
Well, no,
electorals.
you have the Congress,
But
Congress,
yeah, Congress is all yes. So Congress is by district.
so could that help
So
over
vote
the
by,
course
you
of
mean give it by district? Give the electoral by district.
Well, yeah, we'll see what if you think about it, would it make enough? Let's say right now, so California is a Democrat state,
Yeah.
okay, but you've got your Republican and you've got your Democratic Congress candidates that are running for this position. You've
Yeah.
got your incumbents and you have your newly ones that are coming into it.
You could win the popular vote but lose the Electoral College and lose the presidency.
Right.
So that happened 4 times in our history. 2 times were in the 1800s, 1876. Tilden, Democrat, had 50.9% of the popular vote. Rutherford B. Hayes, Republican, only had 47.9% of the
Oh,
popular
wow.
vote.
Okay.
And again,
And
those it being in the 1800s, right? The percentage off, right? That's what is 3% or so. That could be very small, right? Because
yeah,
population was very low.
right, right.
Um, and then 1888, Grover Cleveland had 48.6. Benjamin Harrison had 47.8, so much closer. And then most recently, 2000, Gore had 48.4 and Bush had 47.9. So again, a very, very close. I think it was only
Like
like
really,
500,000 votes or something.
right.
Very close though,
It was
right?
like real
It's almost
tight, yeah.
50-50, yeah. And then most recently was 2016 with Clinton and Trump. So Clinton had 48.2% and Trump had 46.1. But
Okay,
of
and
course, we know Trump won.
of course.
So,
So
it could happen where,
you could have the popular vote, but
yeah,
that necessarily mean
not
that you had the
necessarily mean.
electoral
So
colleges
that's why it's a
decide.
strategy game to get
Okay.
that you got to win those specific states and you got to know which states to get to. And
And those
that's the
voters that are
strategy.
voting basically help to determine whether or not the tide is going to go one way or the other.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. That's
So
right.
that's
And
why it's important to
it's
vote.
important to know, yes. But I guess we can talk about changes to the Electoral College, right? We talked about it almost happened in 1970.
Right.
Didn't happen all the way, and I doubt it's going to happen in our lifetime. But um, there's some ideas of how do we make it more fair, because if I'm in Texas and I'm a Democrat and
What it
my
almost
vote doesn't feel like it means as
that's the
much
part. I think that's where people start to feel
because
sort
we
of
lose.
apathetic about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
If I was sitting in Wyoming, where the population is a lot smaller, as a Democrat or Republican, either way, and if I vote, my vote feels like it actually makes an impact and a
Yes.
difference, because it really
Exactly.
might.
Yes.
And not saying that the larger states it won't, but it it can feel that way, and it can disenfranchise people, and deter them from wanting to vote, which is not what we want. We want people to vote. So I think that's the difference there. But a thought would be to have um, the based off of popular vote. So if California goes 60% to the Democrats, 40% to the Republicans, well, the Democrats can get 60% of those electoral college votes.
Okay.
Republicans will get 40%. Therefore, as a Republican voting in California, I now feel that my vote counts
Absolutely. Something
because
like that would
it's
sort
worth
of, would
something. It's
start to
got
really,
value.
and then I think people would find themselves getting more active
Yeah,
with their right to vote, because I think a
exactly.
lot of people sort of back away from it
Yeah.
because of that reason.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel like, well, I don't really have to do anything because it's already deemed that it's going to go one way or the other.
Right. And it's all or nothing system. So, California holds 50-ish electoral votes.
So,
If a Republican can win 40% of those, it's a different game. It's a
Yes,
different strategy that
absolutely.
people have to initiate and think
And
through.
then you look at it across the board and you say, when you sum it all up, you say, well, here's the winner based on these numbers here,
Exactly.
you know.
So it's a little more fair, I think. And then, of course, the ultimate would be just to go to a popular vote,
Yeah,
because the winner take all of a popular vote, because that's how it is in every other election we have here in the U.S. Senate,
yeah,
popular
I
vote.
know.
House of Representatives, popular vote, right?
I
It
mean,
doesn't
down
make
to the even
sense.
down to the city level
The
where you
local
got the
level.
local, yeah,
The
you've
local
got,
level is always popular vote. It's
yeah.
not based off of an electoral college. So you don't get a percentage or amount of votes based off of what you won. So I think those are just interesting points to bring up. I
Well,
mean,
I think it's
neither,
a very, I think it's a very timely manner of having this discussion because a
yeah.
lot of times people still get kind of lost with all the electoral processes
Hmm.
that are in place. And so I'm hoping that maybe this brief discussion sort of shines a little bit more of a glimpse on what is happening in this process
Yeah,
and really take advantage of your right to vote here
for
coming
sure.
up and not to take it for granted and say, well, just because I'm already in one state or the other that has one party or the other, I think that you really want to take that right and use that
Yeah,
right to vote. So,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. I agree with you 100%, Harold. I don't, it doesn't, we're in a system that we're in today, and that's what we have. Just go out and vote.
that's it.
That's it. Like, that's
November
all we can
5th
ask
is
for.
the big day,
That's
and
it.
that's in a couple days from now.
Go out and
So
vote.
we go out and vote. So we're going to close this out. We always try to close out with a word that is of kindness.
Yeah.
And we want to sort of be, especially at this political juncture here, I think kindness cannot be
Yeah,
overstated,
for sure.
because we've sort of felt this for the past few months now
Oh
that
my goodness.
we're
Yeah.
sort of, kind of pensive about what's coming up in the electoral process here. But we want to mention that there's there's a movement. I think it's called Kindness 101. We wanted to sort of start that to say that they are illustrating the things that, and especially at the young level, the kids are actually embarking up on this,
Hmm.
and so they are focused on uh, people that are doing things kind to one another, and it's something that's most needed global wise, not just here in this country, but if we can start as a nation and as humanity to do
Yeah.
things, just a simple hello to someone passing by on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
and maybe they're not even looking, they're not expecting you. You say, hello, how are you today? And even if they don't respond back, you did something kind.
Hmm.
And that's what we really want to see starting to happen. And we'd love to hear you shares your thoughts of what you are doing to sort of add to this movement in a
Yeah.
sense.
That
What do
just
you say?
simple stuff. Holding the door open for
Yeah,
someone when they're coming
absolutely.
in. Just saying please and thank you.
Just
Just the simple
simple.
stuff. People remember that,
Absolutely. And
right?
it sort of
People
helps
remember that.
to get them to moving in that direction. And it
Exactly.
becomes then a
You pass it on. You keep
payoff.
passing it on and passing it
Absolutely.
on.
So,
So
with
beautiful.
that being said, we're going to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you be with us on our next episode of
Yeah.
CaLew.
Make sure you follow us on our social media accounts: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. What else do we have?
That's
Threads. I think that's it.
and YouTube.
And YouTube. Thank you.
Yes, you
Spotify
got
as
it.
well. So
Yes.
we look forward to seeing you again.
Until
Bye.
then, take care.